Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, we're going to start a new unit. The details aren't really all that important. It's not like I'm keeping any secrets, but we might as well just get started right away.
My time is short, but you need to know the truth. I've hacked into his secure files and then decrypted his video camera. You need to see this.
Hello? Yeah, I'm wrapping up. What? No, we've been over this. I'm not telling them it's the data and probability unit. They'll get scared and click away. So today will be part one of our introduction to analyzing graphs. Let's get started. So our set of notes today will focus on three different types of graphs. We've got bar graphs, which will be used best in comparing between different categories. So we can see here between the people that voted on the preferred types of music. We can also do things with double bar graphs where we can have categories and then break down the categories, in this example, between boys and girls. And we can see those comparisons pretty easily. Next, in line graphs, we want to use that as change over time. Time is a pretty key factor in most line graphs. You want to be able to compare early, perhaps June to November, and we can see how that changes over time. We can also do this with multi-lines, 2 or 3 lines at a time. Double line graphs will only have 2 lines, but this has 3, and we can see between the rising prevalence of streaming versus the purchasing of CDs. We can see that over time pretty easily. And then pie charts or circle graphs are used when you have a total and it's broken down into smaller parts. So the expenditures based on household income, for example, what you spend your money on, can be broken down into a pie chart because what you have for money is a total, and you can take that total and split it into smaller chunks and see what you're spending money on. So let's look at a couple of examples of these. Now, our first of 2 examples today is going to feature the circle graph, and we're going to have 2 different questions. So we're going to start with letter A. Which 2 categories comprise 25% of the budget? Well, if I look at this, 25% would be a quarter. So we have a quarter here in the 25% marked there. However, it's 2 categories. So we are looking for the mirror on the other side of that, this 10% and 15%, because those 2 together will make 25%. What are those 2? Well, those are a light yellow here and a light green here. So I'm going to go ahead and find the light green here, which looks like it's customer experience, and the light yellow, which looks like it is G and A. So those 2 categories put together, customer experience and G and A, will tell me that's 25% of the budget, and that's the answer to my first question. The second question, how much money of the budget goes towards R&D, is a little bit more complicated because I need to know how much money that is from their total budget. And you do see their total budget is down here because it's asking us about money. We are going to need that number, $500,000. So how much money of the budget goes towards R&D? Well, R&D is this bright yellow chunk. So we need to know how much 20% is, how much 20% is out of their total budget. And in order to solve this one, I'm going to have to do some calculation. I'm going to take the approach to make a proportion. 20% out of 100% is going to relate to how much money they have to spend on this out of $500,000. If I cross multiply and solve that, I'll get my answer. Getting out my calculator and multiplying this out will tell me that I have $100,000 to spend on R&D. Or $100,000 of the budget goes to R&D. To sum up, you need to identify the important information and sometimes make sure you're checking the calculations to get your final answer. Our second example will be to select graph type. So we're choosing the graph that would best display data from a scenario. Our first of two examples is to decide the graph for the profit 5 different companies make in 1 year. Looking at this, I see first off that we're talking about 5 companies and 1 year. The time is interesting, but I'm going to eliminate line graph and double line graph as a scenario because I am under the impression that this would be one piece of information, one year for the companies to give me the info on their profit. Since we're talking about more than just the time, we're talking about the 5 different companies, I'm expecting that we'll want to make some kind of comparison between them. Who made the most money? Who made the least money? And that's only something you're going to see in a bar graph. The double bar graph could be interesting if we had income and expense, but if we're just looking at profit, we want a bar graph. Our second example is a movie's income over the 30 days since its release. Well, to me, if we're just talking about a movie and time, 30 days, that's a longer period of time. I'd be more interested to see how the movie makes ticket sales on weekends compared to weekdays. That might suggest a bar graph, but because we're talking about time, the correct result here would be to choose a line graph. I want to be able to see how that movie tracks its income over a period of time that is a little longer than simply 1 day or 1 week. There you have it, folks. This is likely a review of graphs and introductions to analyzing graphs, but there are 3 that we've seen in this episode: bar, line, and circle. And what you would want to do if you're having to solve for something, you may need to identify the info you need, and keep in mind that when calculating, especially with pie charts, that you'll need percents and proportions. I wish you the best of luck, stay happy and healthy, see you in the next one, bye!